Hi, welcome to our final broadcast, Lunchtime Learning for 2016. I cannot believe that we have done 12 Lunchtime Learning webinars. If you recall from our very first webinar on goal setting, one of my goals for Entropia this year was to do a monthly Lunchtime Learning webinar the third Wednesday of every month at 12:30 Eastern Time. And even though it seems simple to do, when you are held accountable for doing these webinars once a month, it really does help with my growth, with my brand and development. I've got an opportunity to meet a lot of people. As a result, I've actually gotten business from doing this. So the whole theme for this year was investing in you. And a part of investing in me was investing in Entropia and in doing more things to do outreach and being able to provide services to others. So investing in the time and preparation for me, giving my clients, my audience, those of you that have supported me throughout 2016 and actually throughout the entire Entropia journey since we started in 2009. I just want to take this time to say thank you, and I look forward to 2017 and beyond with what we may be able to do together. So with that, you kind of think about what do you do at the beginning of the year? We talk about goal setting. Well, it's the end of the year, and you normally would think about, well, let's do a review. I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to talk about feedback. And we often think about feedback in terms of giving feedback. So people want to say, well, how do I give feedback? How do I tell someone that they're getting on my nerves? How do I tell someone that they're a poor performer? How do I tell my manager that I need more time from her or him? How do I tell my manager? How do I tell my boss? How do I tell my partner? How do I tell anyone that I need help? That's the easy part. And there are a lot of ways out there in which we do find ways or seminars, webinars, articles on giving feedback. I wanted to end this year in our lunchtime webinar series on the art of receiving feedback. Oftentimes we hear it's better to give than receive. Well, in this instance, I think that learning how to receive feedback is just as, if not more important than actually giving the feedback. Because when you receive the feedback, it's something that helps you. So in that it is the end of the year, I'm not going to take a lot of your time. This will actually probably be one of our shorter webinars because I know you have plenty of Christmas shopping or holiday shopping that you want to complete. So I'll just leave you with 4 things. How do you receive feedback? The first thing I want you to remember is in receiving feedback, resist. Resist the urge of being the victim. Too many times when people are giving us feedback, we want, especially if it's feedback that we don't want to hear, or if it's feedback that we don't agree with, we often fall into the victim role. Well, if I had been able to do this, then this wouldn't have happened, or I've just got so much going on where I couldn't perform. No, you're not the victim here. Accept the feedback, accept what the person is sharing with you. And that leads to the next point. So you're resisting the urge to be a victim, but the second thing is you're refraining from being defensive. And what that means, when someone gives you feedback, take it personally. Oftentimes we say, oh, don't take it personal. Yes, I say do take it personal from the standpoint of that individual, that person has thought enough of you, whether you agree with what they're saying or not, but they've thought enough of you to share something with you that can help you improve. You have to refrain from being defensive. You have to refrain from going immediately to reasons why this happened or reason why this did not happen. Sometimes you just have to refrain. Sometimes you just have to be silent and listen. Listen to what they're saying. Resist being the victim. Refrain from being defensive. The third thing that you have to do in terms of receiving feedback and being really good at receiving that feedback is reflecting. And reflecting simply means that you're processing. You're taking everything in that the person has shared with you, not saying that you have to agree with it. That's the thing about feedback. You don't have to agree with it. But the art of receiving it means that you're resisting being a victim, you're refraining from being defensive, but you reflect on what it is that they have said. Sometimes it's very painful. Sometimes you do have to just step aside and not respond immediately, but you step aside, you go to your own quiet place, and you really start to think about, what is it that they told me? What did they share? A couple of questions that you can ask in your reflective mode. Is it true? That's very hard for many of us. We have to ask, is it true? Is the information that they have shared with us true? Have I done my best work this year? Have I given my all? Have I goofed off? Have I slacked off? Have I been a little distant? Have I taken too many days off? Have I taken too long at some of my lunch hours where I'm not in the office as much as I should be? Have I taken advantage of the remote working a bit too much, where if I'm working from home, I'm actually doing homework or work at home rather than doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing? Um, am I actually performing to the level at which I say that I can perform? I.e., I've said that I have these capabilities, but am I actually performing to that level? Do I really need to have more training? Those are some of the things that you ask yourself depending upon the feedback that someone has given you. Is it true? Is it true? And if it is true in your reflective moments, in terms of receiving that feedback, you have to start thinking about, well, what can I do to build upon that? What can I do? If it's true, what can I do to correct some of those things? If it's positive feedback, if it's constructive feedback, if it's areas of improvement, what can you do to make it better? Do you need to seek help? Do you need to ask others? The other thing in your reflective moments, if you found out that it is indeed true, then maybe sometimes you don't understand what your next step should be. In those instances, what you do is ask for help, clarify. You can go back to the person that gave you the feedback and ask them to give you some more examples. And again, be careful when you ask for the examples that you're not going on the defensive stance, or you're not going to use those examples against them for giving you that feedback. Because this is what happens all too often. People will tell you, if you go back and ask for examples and they give you examples, then it's easy for us to fall back into the victim or the defensive mode. Well, no, that happened because XYZ, or the only reason I did that is because of this. Don't be a victim. Refrain from being defensive. Reflect on the information that they gave you. It'll make you a much better person. Sometimes in that reflective mode, you may find out, that it's not true. Or there may be reasons, not excuses, but there may be reasons for them perceiving you in that manner. Key thing here is they gave you the feedback because it is something that they do perceive or have perceived you to have done or are doing. If it's something that you don't want to be perceived in that manner, again, it may not be true, but if they perceive it, now you have to try to figure out, how do you correct it? And how do you give them reasons, or how do you share your, how do you share your ability, or I lost the words here. How do you share your desire to improve? How do you share your intent to really show that you have received the feedback, you are acting upon it, and this is what you want to do to correct it? Again, clarifying questions, reflecting, refraining, but asking the questions. Ask a friend, ask a family member. There may be something that, you've gotten feedback from work, you've gotten feedback from a coworker or a friend or someone you may be in an organization with. If you have received the feedback and you don't really agree with it, what do? You ask for help. You ask for clarifying questions. The last thing that I want to say is, in the art of receiving feedback, and we could actually have a much, much longer webinar on this, but I want to make this quick and simple. So resist being a victim, refrain from becoming defensive, reflect or process what was actually being said. And the last thing is reciprocate. I said this a few minutes ago. When people give you feedback, you're often told to not take it personally. But I say you do have to take it personally. because that person is sharing with you their personal perspective. And you have to appreciate that. You may not agree with it, but you appreciate it. And so then the last R in receiving is reciprocate. Tell them thank you. Thank them for thinking enough of you to share with you feedback that can somehow help you grow. If it is true, then you work on that. You work on that skill. You work on, maybe it's your behavior, maybe it's your demeanor. When you are in certain positions in certain environments, your appearance is very important. Now, I'm not saying your dress, but your facial appearance. If you are in a people oriented environment, then people don't want to meet someone who always has a frowny face or the sour face. I'm not saying you have to walk around with a smile plastered on at all times, because there will be times when you just don't feel like smiling. But if you're in a people environment, if you're tasked with working with people, whether they be students, whether it be a customer service area, whether you be an administrator, if you're interacting with people, then you really need to have a more pleasant demeanor. And sometimes we don't realize that maybe we carry a frown on our face. Not intentional, maybe we're just thinking. Maybe it's, maybe you're a deep thought thinker and you have a frown. I can tell you, people often tell me, oh, you look so mean because you're not smiling. Well, I do smile a lot, but I also think a lot. And so my natural resting face may be one of a thinker. I may see a little crease marks in my face when I'm thinking. It may make it seem as though I'm looking mad or mean, but more than likely I'm just thinking. But when someone gave me that feedback, I'm now more conscious of that, particularly when I'm working in environments with other people, because I'm in the business of helping people. I'm in a people-oriented business, so I can't make people. I have to be approachable. I can't turn people away by my appearance, facial appearance, or my attitude or demeanor. Just little things that you can work on. Um, Asking questions. I went to a conference earlier this year and we were talking about being an epic leader, which epic is one of the things that we'll focus on a lot in 2017. Shameless plug here. But we were talking about the perceptions of building your brand. And one young lady in the audience was always asking questions. She was the first person to always run to the mic whenever the seminar was over or whenever the speaker finished. Always had to be first. That can be viewed as a good thing or a bad thing. Well, one piece of feedback that was shared with this young lady is really be careful about your intentions of always wanting to be first, always having to be that first person at the mic. It's great to show that you are engaged and involved, but you also don't want to come across as being the mic hog or the person that has to have the shine, and not really being considerate of others who may have questions, particularly if you are in a time constrained or time restrained environment where only a few people can ask questions. And you're at a large meeting, a large conference, there are other people that may want to have something to say. And even though you may be able to be the fastest sprinter to the mic, that may not be the person. You may not want to do that. Something for you to consider. So this feedback was given to that young lady. She didn't realize that that's how it was being perceived. She just had a lot of questions that she wanted to get answered. Well, we talked about a few ways in which she could still get her questions answered, but still being considerate to others in her environment. Just little things to think about when you think about feedback or receiving the feedback. Now, that could have been, she could have taken it in many different ways. She could have been very defensive. She could have been a victim. And in doing that, you miss the message and you miss receiving the feedback or something that can actually help you. So with that, I just want to wrap it up. The art of receiving feedback, it also means you have to practice. You have to allow people to give you feedback and start to think when someone says something to you, are you or do you resist the urge of being a victim? Do you refrain from being defensive? Just because someone says something doesn't mean that you have to immediately respond. Resist being defensive. Sometimes just being quiet is all it takes. Do you reflect on what was being said? Do you allow yourself time to process all of the information that was given And then if you agree with it or if you don't agree with it, if you need clarifying questions, do you follow up with the person? Do you use that information? Do you process? And finally, do you reciprocate? Do you tell them thank you? And then do you give other people feedback so that they can receive? So then it goes back into the giving and receiving, but now you have received, now you can give. Hope this was beneficial to you. Hope that you enjoyed it. Hope that you had a couple of nuggets of wisdom that you've learned about receiving feedback. It's very much so a self thing. It's very much so a growth thing. Thick skin, tough skin, whatever you want to call it. But let that skin loosen up some so that you can actually receive it. We call it in science, it needs to permeate. Become more permeable to feedback. Become more permeable to the things that people are sharing with you to help you become a better person, a better scientist, a better leader. Because we're all leaders, even when we're leading self. Thank you again. Have a wonderful 2016, and I look forward to continuing on the Lunchtime Learning webinars in some form or fashion in 2017. We're going to switch some things up, and in the spirit of feedback, I would love to hear from you. And what have you learned from the 12 webinars this year? Give me feedback on, were they effective? Were they helpful? Did you learn anything? Do we need to change the format? I want to hear from you. I need to receive some feedback so that I can be better for you and Entropia in 2017. Happy holidays. And if you do want to contact me over the holidays or at any time, please feel free. You can, let me put up my contact slide. Here we go. Entropia. Email me directly, mqualls@entropiaconsulting.com. Visit my website. Give me a call. Follow me on Twitter or connect with me on LinkedIn. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, please be sure to put in the message, I saw you on YouTube on one of your webinars, so that I'll know who you are and I make the connection. Happy 2016. Hope you did a wonderful job of investing in you and you're now beginning to reap the returns on that investment. Bye-bye.